Hello, awesome students. We are going to continue our discussion of vertebrates with birds. Now, remember we are in Kingdom Animalia, Phylum Chordata, Subphylum Vertebrata, and class Aves. Now, we find that birds are the closest organisms to mammals in the animal kingdom. Birds are the first endotherms, and you need to make sure you understand that they are the first endotherms. And basically, an endotherm is an organism that can regulate its own body temperature, and they do this because they have a highly advanced brain. So when you think of the ectotherms, remember they were cold-blooded. Well, endotherms now are considered warm-blooded. And unlike ectotherms, endotherms maintain a constant body temperature regardless of the environment to which they're exposed. We see here the appearance of a true four-chambered heart. Remember, this extra chamber now is the most efficient way of getting blood to the lungs in the body. And with all this extra blood in the body, the organism has more energy to do its daily activities. Most birds, not all of them, but the majority of them do have hollow bones. These are the ones that actually fly. The feathers, as we see here, are a skin modification. They are actually attached to the skin. So feathers are attached to the skin just like our hair is attached to our skin. Now, they also have a very highly advanced respiratory system. Actually, birds' respiratory system is more advanced than humans. But you may ask, well, why are they not smarter then? Well, remember, birds don't use that extra energy or the extra oxygen to develop the brain any further than it already is. Rather, they use it for flight because they need a lot of energy for flight. Now, with the bird brain, we see that they are able to problem solve. They actually are able to make sounds, even more sounds than many animals because they have a speech center. And they also have the same five senses that you and I have. If you look here at the bird brain here and compare it to the human brain, you see that they are, fairly similar. What you find is that the orange area here is all cerebrum. As you see here, they have a full cerebrum, and it's pretty massive as ours is. And they also have a thalamus and a hypothalamus too. So we actually see where the bird brain is more high developed than the other organisms that we have discussed thus far. Now, with the feathers, if you look here, you see a blow up, if you will, of a piece of a bird feather. And what you'll notice is that there are barbules that attach to the shaft, and there are also hooks and barbs that form a lattice-like structure. You see this lattice-like structure here. Now, this particular arrangement allows the feather to actually catch air so the bird can stay aloft in flight, but at the same time, it allows water to roll off so the bird doesn't feel heavy and weighed down. And as you can see noted here, birds have over 14 types of feathers. Now, why feathers? Feathers have several functions for the bird. The most obvious one is flight. Another one is to actually attract a mate. Then it helps with temperature control, swimming and diving, protection from the wind, sun, and moisture. It also helps the bird in terms of camouflage as a form of protection. And then, yes, as you see here, the feathers do play a role in digestion. Now, in terms of flight, flight requires that the birds have hollow bones. Now, remember our bones and bones of birds that do not fly, like chickens, for instance, their bones are filled with marrow. And so because of all this marrow inside the bone, that makes the bird too heavy to actually fly. Well, birds that fly actually have hollow bones that do not have this marrow inside of it. What I will do is I will post a separate video that explains how birds actually fly. And of course, flight requires feathers and wings, modified lungs that we'll talk about in a little bit, which actually have air sacs, and of course tons of energy. Lots and lots and lots and lots of energy. Now you may be wondering where this energy comes from. So, remember we talked about the heart. The more chambers the heart has, the more oxygen can get to the body tissues, and with more oxygen, remember, more energy can be produced. Now we find that the four-chambered heart in the bird is very similar, or pretty much the same as it is in mammals. You have two upper atria and two lower ventricles. Now what we do find though is that the ascending aorta actually points to the right in the bird, but if this were a mammalian heart, it will point to the left. Like I said, that is the only difference between a bird's heart and a mammal's heart, is that the ascending aorta in the bird points to the right, but in the mammalian heart, it points to the left. So let's take a look at the bird's respiratory system. The peachy area here are the lungs, and all this blue area here are actually air sacs. And what these air sacs do is they make the bird very, very light on the inside, and they provide additional oxygen, which, as I just said, more oxygen leads for more ATP, or energy production, which they can use for wing flapping. So that's where the energy comes from to help the bird flap its wings for flight. Now, additional specialized structures in the bird, in addition to the modified interior air sacs, include a crop and a gizzard. Now, the crop and the gizzard aid in digestion, because what happens is birds actually swallow stones and feathers, and as the birds move around, the stones help to crush the seeds and the grains that they actually eat. Because remember, birds do not have teeth. Rather, they peck at the food and then they actually swallow it whole. The bursa fabricus basically means production sac, is used to make blood for the bird. Remember, birds have hollow bones, at least those that have flight or those that are able to fly have hollow bones. Well, we humans and other land dwelling, if you will, birds have bone marrow, and that's where their blood is produced. Well, for those birds that have hollow bones because they actually fly most of the time, they have a bursa fabricus where their blood is made. And we also see here that the feathers must molt. Now, we've seen molting before. Remember in the arthropod that the exoskeleton must molt and regrow. In the reptile, the skin molts and then regrows. Well, with birds, in a similar manner, their feathers must also molt and then regrow. Now for our Geek of the Week is Thomas Henry Huxley, who was born in 1825 and died 70 years later in 1895. And he was known as Darwin's bulldog. Now, if you recall, Charles Darwin was the main proponent of natural selection because he felt that there were certain alleles that were suited for survival. Now, Huxley was a fierce advocate of evolution along with Darwin, and he was actually the first to propose that birds evolved from reptiles. And he actually stated that in 1862 that birds were so essentially similar to reptiles in all the most essential features of the organization that these animals may be said to be merely an extremely modified and aberrant reptilian type. Now, why is this important? This is important because we are still trying to determine the origin of dinosaurs. Now, dinosaurs have bird-like and reptile-like characteristics. Now, years and years and years and years went on before any evidence or proof of Huxley's theory was actually brought forth. Well, in 1996, though, there was the first fossilized Archaeopteryx that was found in mud. And this was a game changer because once we actually found the Archaeopteryx right here, what they noted was that most people actually bought into Huxley's theory with the finding of the Archaeopteryx. So that led us to say, hey, well, can dinosaurs be birds and not reptiles? Well, let's see. If you look here at this cladogram that actually looks at if the Archaeopteryx is a bird, well, let's see. If you notice, remember, if the Archaeopteryx is right here, all of the characteristics before it means that these are things it has, and all the characteristics after are things it lacks. So based on this cladogram here, the Archaeopteryx has a hinge-like ankle, legs directly underneath the body, a bipedal gait, a long index finger, hollow bones, a wishbone, a three-finger hand, feathers, and a large sternum, a backwards pointing pubis or pelvic bone, and is able to fly. What it does not have is a vertebrate ending, no claws on the wings, a keel sternum, which is a breastbone, and it does not have a toothless beak. So if we had to classify the Archaeopteryx based on this cladogram here, we could definitively say that it is more similar to a reptile than it is to a bird. Well, what we will do a little later in a couple of later lectures, we'll actually talk about where dinosaurs came from and look more into their relationship to other animals. Until then, you have your homework, and I will see you in class.